We have some breaking news that we are very sorry to report, and that is that Dolly Parton has died.
She wrote more than 3,000 songs and built a fortune estimated between $450 million and $650 million. From a tiny cabin in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee, Dolly Parton became one of the most recognizable names in American music. She turned poverty into inspiration, rhinestones and blonde wigs into an unmistakable identity, and songwriting into an empire she controlled herself. Then, just 4 days before her death on August 21st, 2026, Dolly quietly revealed that she had not been well. Behind the extraordinary career was a deeply human final chapter. For months, she had reportedly struggled with dehydration, dizziness, and kidney stones, health problems serious enough to cancel appearances and reduce travel.
Hey everyone, my name is Brian Seaver, son of Cassie Parton, and I'm representing the Parton and Owens family today, announcing the passing of my Aunt Dolly, Rebecca Parton Dean.
Yet Dolly kept moving forward because that was what she had done her entire life. So what really happened during those final months? And how did a girl who grew up with almost nothing become one of America's wealthiest self-made entertainers? The answer wasn't simply talent or luck. Decades earlier, Dolly made decisions about ownership that would eventually become almost as important as the songs themselves.
Dolly also opened doors for generations of singers, songwriters, musicians, and dreamers from every walk of life and across every continent.
She protected her publishing rights and refused to surrender control of the music she had created. One of the most famous examples came when Elvis Presley wanted to record "I Will Always Love You." His manager reportedly demanded a share of the publishing rights. Dolly refused, despite knowing what an Elvis recording could mean for the song. It was a painful decision at the time, but one that eventually proved enormously valuable. By August 2026, however, money and business were far from the most important things on Dolly's mind. Speaking to People magazine shortly before her death, she acknowledged that she was dealing with health issues she had neglected while caring for her husband, Carl Dean. After 58 years of marriage, Carl had died earlier that year. Dolly had spent his final period doing what those closest to her had seen her do countless times before, putting someone else's needs ahead of her own.
Rest in peace, Aunt Dolly, Aunt Granny, Gigi. May God bless Dolly Parton, and may God bless you all. She will always love you.
Her health problems had already begun affecting her schedule. Reports indicated that dehydration, dizziness, and kidney stones had forced her to cancel appearances and step away from some travel. She had previously mentioned needing several medical procedures, but characteristically discussed the situation without making it sound dramatic. For a woman who had worked relentlessly for more than 6 decades, slowing down did not come naturally. Then, on August 25th, 2026, her nephew, Brian Seaver, who had served as her head of security for more than 2 decades, appeared in a video carrying a message Dolly had apparently prepared for long before anyone expected it would be needed. Before Dolly Parton's death became a reality, she had already prepared for it. Of course she had. Dolly spent a lifetime planning carefully, protecting what mattered, and leaving as little as possible to chance. Apparently, even her farewell had been considered years in advance. The cause of death was not immediately disclosed. Brian Seaver did not name one, nor did her representatives. As of August 25th, 2026, the official cause remained undetermined pending review by the medical examiner in Sevier County, Tennessee.
As her head of security for more than 2 decades, a role my father Larry held before me, I have imagined the heaviness of this moment, but haven't truly felt it until now.
Her family confirmed only that Dolly had faced health struggles during her final months. Brian said she was now in the arms of Jesus, reunited with Carl, her parents, and those she had lost. Perhaps that is enough about the ending, because Dolly Parton's ending was never the most remarkable part of her story. That story began 80 years earlier in rural Tennessee, where poverty wasn't something romanticized in a movie. It was something a family lived every day. Dolly was born January 19, 1946, the fourth of 12 children. Her father, Robert Lee Parton, worked as a tobacco and corn farmer and had received little formal education. Her mother, Avie Lee, married young and raised an enormous family under circumstances that demanded constant sacrifice. They had very little. One childhood memory eventually became Coat of Many Colors, one of Dolly's most personal songs. Her mother stitched a coat together from scraps of fabric while telling her the biblical story of Joseph. What might have represented poverty became, through her mother's storytelling, something valuable and beautiful. That lesson stayed with Dolly. The story you tell about something can transform what it means. Music arrived almost immediately. She performed in church by 6, appeared on local radio around age 10, and recorded her first single at 13.
It is an honor that is mixed with absolute pride and great sadness. But sadness lies with us, not with Dolly.
Then, after graduating from high school in 1964, Dolly packed a bag and headed for Nashville. She was still a teenager, and Nashville certainly wasn't waiting for her. She spent her early years writing songs, pitching material, and studying how the music business actually worked. It was an industry capable of turning talented people into stars while quietly taking ownership of the very work that made them valuable. Dolly paid attention. Growing up poor had taught her what happened when people didn't understand the rules. She had watched adults with little education and even less leverage navigate a world where someone else usually held the advantage. So Dolly learned the rules herself. Then she learned how to use them. By 1967, she joined The Porter Wagoner Show, a nationally syndicated television program that introduced her to millions of Americans. Suddenly, the young songwriter from Locust Ridge had a recognizable face. The blonde hair became bigger, the outfits became brighter, the personality became unforgettable. America began constructing the Dolly Parton it thought it knew, funny, glamorous, warm, sparkling, and almost larger than life. But underneath that carefully designed image was an extraordinarily disciplined businesswoman.
Dolly has lived in the light and is in the arms of Jesus, surely met by Carl, her parents, and countless others who have watched her and longed for her to meet them in the heaven.
Porter Wagoner gave Dolly Parton her first major national platform. He also became the first great test of her independence. In his mind, he had discovered her and helped create her success. Dolly appreciated what he had done, but she understood something Porter did not. Her career ultimately belonged to her. During those years, she also perfected the image America would recognize instantly. The enormous blonde wigs, rhinestones, long nails, and carefully applied makeup weren't simply vanity. They were part of a deliberate identity. The wigs alone eventually numbered more than 100. They allowed her to prepare quickly, perform anywhere, and remain instantly recognizable.
Dolly opened doors not just for me, but for her entire family to reach the potential we didn't even know was possible.
Dolly understood branding decades before celebrities routinely talked about personal brands. As she famously joked, "It takes a lot of money to look this cheap." Behind the joke was a strategy. The exaggerated appearance became armor, almost like another version of her mother's coat of many colors. People could laugh at the blonde hair and rhinestones while Dolly quietly controlled the business underneath them. She once joked that dumb blonde jokes never bothered her because she knew two things: she wasn't dumb and she wasn't really blonde. But beneath the image, the songs revealed the real Dolly. Over 6 decades, she wrote more than 3,000 of them. She often worked early in the morning, sometimes around 3 or 4, when everything was quiet. Ideas were captured wherever she could put them: napkins, envelopes, scraps of paper. She wrote about love, poverty, faith, heartbreak, family, loneliness, and the Smoky Mountains. Dolly described her songs as a kind of diary, pieces of herself preserved in melody. And critically, she fought to own them. That wasn't an accident. Dolly had grown up understanding what happened when people lacked money, education, or bargaining power. Once she entered the music industry, she became determined that the work coming from her mind would remain hers. Eventually, that determination faced an extraordinary test.
By her example, we believed that anything was possible. She never saw a door she couldn't open, and the doors she opened made and changed history.
After 7 years working alongside Porter Wagoner, Dolly decided it was time to leave. Their professional relationship had helped transform her career, but she wanted independence. Instead of delivering an angry goodbye, she wrote one. The song was "I Will Always Love You." She played it for Porter. He cried. Dolly cried. But she still left. Released in 1974, the song reached #1 on the country charts. Years later, Dolly recorded it again, and it returned to #1. But between those successes came a phone call that would reveal exactly how seriously Dolly took ownership. Elvis Presley wanted to record "I Will Always Love You." For almost any songwriter, this was the dream. Elvis wasn't merely another singer interested in her music. He was one of the biggest entertainers on earth. An Elvis recording could introduce Dolly's song to millions of new listeners and permanently connect her writing to the biggest name in popular music. Dolly was thrilled. Then came the condition.
Dolly was a farmer, just like her daddy. He farmed the soil, she farmed songs and happiness.
Elvis's manager, Colonel Tom Parker, explained that if Elvis recorded the song, they expected a substantial share of the publishing rights. Suddenly, Dolly faced an almost impossible choice. She could hand over part of one of her greatest songs and hear Elvis Presley sing it. Or she could protect what she had spent her entire life learning never to surrender. An Elvis Presley recording wasn't simply a compliment, it was a commercial event. It meant enormous radio exposure, years of royalties, and an association with one of the most famous entertainers alive. But Elvis's manager, Colonel Tom Parker, had conditions. According to Dolly Parton's later account, Elvis could record "I Will Always Love You" only if she surrendered half of the publishing rights. 50% of one of the most important songs she had ever written. Dolly said no. It wasn't an easy decision. She understood exactly what she was turning down.
Dolly called me and said she wants to rest in a beautiful bed of plush cotton because after a life wearing heavy rhinestones, she finally deserves to be comfortable and have some rest.
Elvis could transform a songwriter's career overnight, and refusing his team carried risks in an industry built around powerful relationships. Dolly later admitted that she cried over the decision. She loved Elvis and desperately wanted to hear him sing her song. But she wanted ownership more. Elvis never recorded it, and Dolly kept the publishing rights. For nearly 2 decades, there was no way she could have known just how valuable that decision would become. Then, in 1992, Whitney Houston recorded "I Will Always Love You" for the Bodyguard. Her version transformed the song into a global phenomenon. Houston's extraordinary vocal performance introduced Dolly's composition to an entirely new generation and became one of the most successful singles in music history. It spent 14 weeks at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and sold millions of copies around the world. And because Dolly had refused to surrender her publishing decades earlier, she benefited enormously from its success. Estimates have suggested that Houston's recording generated roughly $10 million or more in publishing royalties for Dolly over time, with some estimates placing the total value even higher. The important part wasn't simply the money, it was what Dolly had been willing to risk before knowing how the story would end. When she rejected the Elvis deal, Whitney Houston's version was still 17 years away. There was no guarantee another opportunity would ever arrive. Dolly simply believed that something she had created possessed value regardless of whose name was attached to it. That philosophy went all the way back to Locust Ridge. Her mother had taken scraps of fabric and transformed them into something meaningful by telling Dolly the biblical story of Joseph while sewing her coat. Dolly carried a similar lesson into business. Something seemingly ordinary could become priceless if you understood its meaning and refused to let someone else define its worth. And Dolly understood another lesson just as clearly. Ownership mattered. By the time Whitney Houston's recording had completed its historic chart run, Dolly had already written thousands of songs. Instead of selling away the rights for short-term gains, she spent decades protecting the catalog that represented her life's work. That catalog eventually became one of the foundations of her enormous wealth. But it was only one foundation. There was also real estate, television, films, licensing, merchandise, business partnerships, and eventually Dollywood. Together, those ventures helped transform a country songwriter into the head of an entertainment empire worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Yet the heart of that empire remained remarkably simple. Songs written early in the morning, in hotel rooms, on tour buses, and in whatever quiet corner Dolly could find. Words and melodies created by a girl from Tennessee who understood something many successful artists learned too late. She owned every word and every note. Dolly Parton had made certain of that decades earlier when she chose control of her work over an opportunity with Elvis Presley. More than the rhinestones, wigs, or carefully constructed image, that decision revealed who she really was, an artist who understood the value of ownership. Exactly how wealthy Dolly became depends on the estimate. Forbes estimated her fortune at roughly $450 million in 2025, while other celebrity wealth estimates placed it closer to $650 million. That enormous gap demonstrates how difficult it is to calculate the value of an empire built across music, entertainment, licensing, real estate, and tourism. Dolly wasn't a technology founder or an heiress. She was a songwriter from rural Tennessee who built her fortune one decision at a time. At the center was her music catalog. Across 6 decades, Dolly wrote more than 3,000 songs, including Jolene, Coat of Many Colors, 9 to 5, and I Will Always Love You. But the true value extended far beyond the famous titles. Thousands of her compositions were recorded by other performers, licensed for television and film, covered across genres, and played around the world. By maintaining control of her publishing, Dolly created an asset capable of generating income long after each song was originally written. Estimates have valued that catalog at well over $100 million, though calculating its precise value is difficult because it remains privately controlled. Then there was Dollywood. Located in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, the theme park grew from the earlier Silver Dollar City attraction into one of the region's biggest tourist destinations. Dolly became involved in the 1980s, lending not merely her name, but her identity and vision to the project. Millions of visitors eventually passed through its gates each year. For Dolly, however, Dollywood represented more than another source of wealth. It brought jobs and tourism back to the same part of Tennessee where she had grown up with almost nothing. Her father, Robert Lee Parton, had received little formal education. Dolly never forgot what poverty looked like or how limited opportunities could be in the mountains where she was raised. So instead of simply leaving Tennessee after becoming famous, she invested back into it. Her fortune continued expanding through other channels. There were decades of film and television work, including 9 to 5, which became both a movie success and one of her signature songs. There were producing credits, licensing agreements, merchandise books, branded products, and business partnerships. Her unmistakable appearance also became commercially valuable. The same blonde wigs and rhinestones that once allowed people to underestimate her eventually became one of the most recognizable personal brands in entertainment. Real estate added another layer, including property in Tennessee. But what made Dolly's fortune remarkable wasn't any single investment. It was the structure. Music created royalties. Ownership preserved those royalties. Fame powered licensing. Licensing strengthened the brand. The brand helped support Dollywood, while Dollywood connected her wealth directly back to the community that created her. The girl who had once watched her father struggle because he couldn't properly read or write had eventually built an economic engine in the county where he raised her. And even after becoming worth hundreds of millions, Dolly never seemed interested in simply accumulating money. Because once she had built the fortune, she began giving enormous pieces of it away. Dolly Parton never displayed her fortune the way people might expect from someone worth hundreds of millions. She built it quietly behind the rhinestones while everyone else was looking at the wigs. And then she gave extraordinary amounts of it away. For Dolly, philanthropy wasn't separate from wealth. It was part of what wealth was supposed to accomplish. In 2020, she donated $1 million to Vanderbilt University Medical Center for COVID-19 research. Her contribution helped support research connected to the Moderna vaccine. Dolly later explained that she hoped speaking publicly about the donation might encourage others to contribute as well. Then came one of the largest philanthropic opportunities of her life. In 2022, Jeff Bezos awarded Dolly $100 million through his Courage and Civility Award, giving her the freedom to direct the money toward charitable causes. But perhaps nothing represented her philosophy better than the Imagination Library. Dolly founded the program in 1995, inspired partly by her father, who had never learned to read and write. The idea was remarkably simple. Enrolled children would receive free books mailed directly to their homes from birth until age 5. Over the following decades, hundreds of millions of books were distributed. There was something almost perfectly circular about it. Dolly had grown up in a home where books were scarce. Her father struggled with literacy. His daughter eventually created a program that placed books into the hands of children around the world. That is why arguing whether Dolly's fortune was worth $450 million or $650 million misses something important. She became wealthy primarily by creating, retaining ownership, and understanding the long-term value of her work. She refused deals that required surrendering too much, even when the people sitting across from her were among the most powerful figures in entertainment. She demonstrated it with Elvis Presley. She benefited from it when Whitney Houston transformed I Will Always Love You into a worldwide phenomenon. And then she used portions of what she built to create opportunities for people who started with the same disadvantages she once knew herself. Every song, every royalty check, every business investment, and every book mailed to a child became another piece of an empire she had constructed from almost nothing. But eventually there was one final responsibility Dolly couldn't handle herself. Years earlier, she had given that responsibility to Brian Saver. Brian's father, Larry, had previously served as Dolly's head of security. Brian eventually followed him, protecting Dolly for more than 2 decades. 2 generations of the same family had been trusted with guarding one of the most recognizable women in America. Then Dolly trusted Brian with something even more personal. She asked him to announce her death when the time came. This video announcement, Brian explained, was something Dolly had requested years earlier, before he had fully understood what carrying out that request would eventually feel like. Now the moment had arrived. Brian spoke carefully, describing the mixture of pride, honor, and enormous sadness he felt fulfilling her final request. Then he offered a sentence that captured Dolly's faith more clearly than almost anything else said that day. Sadness lies with us, he explained, not with Dolly. In Brian's telling, Dolly wasn't the one who needed mourning. She had gone somewhere else, and waiting there, he believed, was Carl Dean. The private man Dolly had married in 1966 had spent nearly 6 decades beside one of the most public women in America. While Dolly toured, recorded, acted, built businesses, and became an international celebrity, Carl remained the quiet center, waiting beyond the spotlight. She had gone to her parents, and in the language of the faith Dolly Parton had never been afraid to claim, she had gone to the place she had been singing about since she was a 6-year-old girl in a Tennessee church. As of August 25, 2026, the official cause of death remained undetermined. What her family confirmed, and what Dolly herself had acknowledged shortly before her death, was that she had been struggling with her health. Reports described dehydration, dizziness, and kidney stones. Dolly had also spent months caring for Carl Dean before his death, putting much of her own well-being aside until she could no longer ignore it. She was 80 years old, and even then she hadn't really stopped working. A Broadway production based on her life and music had been planned, another ambitious project from a woman who had spent more than 6 decades transforming personal experiences into entertainment. What would happen to projects like that now became a question for those responsible for preserving her legacy. Then there was the fortune. Estimates placed Dolly's wealth somewhere between $450 million and $650 million. She and Carl never had children, something Dolly had discussed openly over the years. Rather than describing her life as incomplete because of it, she sometimes suggested that perhaps she had been able to care for more children because she never had her own. The Imagination Library became the clearest expression of that idea. Hundreds of millions of books had been mailed to children, and some of the earliest recipients were now adults enrolling their own sons and daughters. In that sense, Dolly's family stretched far beyond blood. In the months following her death, there would inevitably be difficult decisions surrounding her businesses, intellectual property, charitable programs, and estate. Accountants and lawyers would deal with the complicated machinery that follows a fortune accumulated over an extraordinary lifetime. But some things wouldn't require explanation. The songs would keep playing. Jolene would keep playing. Coat of Many Colors would keep playing. 9 to 5 would remain on playlists, radio stations, and in those corners of memory where certain songs become permanently attached to moments in people's lives. And I Will Always Love You would keep playing. Dolly's version would remain. Whitney Houston's version would remain. So would every interpretation recorded by another singer who heard Dolly's words and recognized something personal inside them. The song had originally been written about leaving. It was Dolly's farewell to Porter Wagoner, a man who had helped shape her early career, but whom she eventually had to leave behind to become fully independent. Years later, the song became something much larger than the circumstances that created it. That was Dolly's gift. She could take something intensely personal and make millions of strangers believe it belonged to them. And when Elvis Presley wanted that song under terms requiring Dolly to surrender part of its ownership, she refused. She couldn't have known Whitney Houston was waiting years in the future. She couldn't have known how valuable the song would become. She simply trusted her work. That instinct followed Dolly throughout her career. She trusted the songs before anyone else understood what they might become. She protected them when powerful people wanted pieces of them. And she kept writing when she was already famous enough to stop. Through every contract, every temptation, every reinvention, and every decade of success, Dolly held on to what she created. She kept waking at 3 or 4 in the morning when the world was quiet enough for her to hear the next melody. She kept writing, even when she had already written enough songs to secure her place in history. She kept sending books to children who might never understand just how personally their futures mattered to her. And she kept wearing the rhinestones, the makeup, and those unmistakable blonde wigs. But perhaps the image was never really about glamour. Perhaps it was armor. In that sense, Dolly Parton never traveled very far from the little girl whose mother stitched together scraps of fabric and transformed them into a coat by telling her a story about Joseph. Dolly spent the rest of her life doing something remarkably similar. taking what was scarce and making it valuable, taking hardship and turning it into music, taking poverty and transforming it into generosity. She became one of America's wealthiest self-made entertainers, yet gave away enormous amounts along the way. Most importantly, she fought to maintain control over the songs that built her career. The girl from Locust Ridge eventually became a global icon without surrendering the part of herself that had started everything. Maybe that is the real lesson of Dolly Parton's life. Success wasn't simply becoming famous enough for the entire world to know her name. It was creating something worth protecting, having the courage to protect it, and then using what it gave her to help someone else. Now the rhinestones remain still, but the songs don't. More than 3,000 pieces of a life remain behind, carrying her voice into places she will never personally visit and generations she will never meet. So leave a tribute in the comments and tell us which Dolly Parton song or memory means the most to you. If you enjoyed this look back at her extraordinary life and legacy, please like the video, subscribe to Golden Fame News, and join us as we continue remembering the legends who shaped generations. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.